Good afternoon. I call the meeting to order for the March 23rd study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
I'll be conducting roll call verbally. Councilmember Brenner. Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Dixon.
Here.
Councilmember Blom.
Here.
Councilmember Duffield has an excused absence. Mayor Pro Tem Muldoon is currently absent. Mayor Avery.
Here. Thank you. So now we'll turn to current business, and the first item is clarification of items on the consent calendar. Councilmember Brenner, do you have any clarifications?
I just wanted to mention that I spoke with Dave Webb on item number 6, which is the micro transit project, and it's important for people to realize that we can bring that back before 2 years. It's not forced that we go 2 years before bringing that back. So I just want people to know that when things get better and we're starting to look at transit options, that we can bring that back before the end of 2 years.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
None.
Councilmember Dixon.
None.
Councilmember Blom.
No clarification, thank you.
And I have none. The next item is a proclamation designating April as Let's Be Kind Month, which I think is a wonderful thing to do. So I'll read the proclamation, and then Costa Mesa Middle High School student Rebecca Robeck, right here in our audience, of course, and her mother, Christina Robeck, can come forward to speak. And so the proclamation is right here. And it's a good one. Whereas in 2018, Rebecca Robeck, a visionary student from Costa Mesa Middle High School, saw a need for inclusiveness among her peers. It was hard for Rebecca to know how to handle unkind peers who would step on her shoes, call her names, and make fun of her. And she knew she could spread kindness as it was shown to her when she and her brother moved to El Salvador as children. I think that's from El Salvador. All right, as children. And whereas Rebecca recognized that being unkind diminishes students of a fun and fulfilling experience at school, and demonstrated leadership by creating opportunities to provide purposeful acts of kindness to cultivate a sense of community, and whereas it was the church and community members who, through their kind gestures and acts of kindness, made Rebecca and her brother feel welcomed and part of the community. And whereas in 2018, Rebecca delivered 200 pizza slices with kind messages to her peers in an attempt to show her peers kindness. And whereas it evolved from pizza slices to designer t-shirts to more campuses joining in on what became Let's Be Kind Day, to raising over $9,000 to purchase 2,100 t-shirts for the entire Costa Mesa middle and high schools. Wow. And whereas on April 25th, 2019, a combined effort of 3 schools led to over 3,000 t-shirts being handed out to students and faculty and staff. And whereas April 2021 will mark the 4th annual Let's Be Kind Day, and whereas Rebecca's mission to unite her peers embodies the city's mission of providing a safe, inclusive, and vibrant community. Now, therefore, I, Brad Avery, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Let's Be Kind Newport Beach Month, and urge all residents, children, and adults to recognize and celebrate this month with kind gestures to others. Kindness is contagious, and we can all offer and participate in our own ways. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Newport Beach to be affixed this 23rd day of March 2021. So that's wonderful. And would you like to speak?
Hi, I just wanted to thank you guys for proclaiming April as Let's Be Kind Month. It means so much that your city is going to be celebrating Let's Be Kind for several years to come. Let's Be Kind truly has changed our community, and I've seen it in Costa Mesa, and so I can't wait to see what it does and at Newport Beach. So thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to get a photo down over here? Great.
Mom, did you want to go? I'll take pictures. Once you get closer to the flag. Mom can go first.
Great job for making a difference.
And she has a picture. Thank you.
The next item is a discussion on how matters which council members have asked to be placed on a future agenda are handled. And this was brought forward by Councilmember Brenner and requesting that City Council A1 policy be revised to allow discussion on items that may be brought back at a future meeting. Do we have any report on this?
Hi, Mayor. I could certainly set the stage a little bit, but then
Okay.
turn over, since this was a A1 item,
Thank you.
as requested by Councilmember Brenner. So just real briefly, as you know, under our council policy A1, council members can place an item on an agenda to determine if there's support for bringing it back for further discussion or report. That's currently set up right now, that the initial decision whether to bring it back is done as a non-discussion item in a section of the agenda. So Councilmember Brenner has requested a discussion, an A1 on the A1, to look at potentially doing a discussion at that initial stage when that vote is set to occur. Councilmember Brenner can certainly will talk more to that, but I just want to, if you can advance to the next slide, if you don't mind. Just want to say that, as part of this discussion, I just want to lay out some potential options. You can certainly take a look at doing further discussion. Another thought could be perhaps a memo could be written by the council member making the request, and that would be included with the agenda, and that could certainly provide a little more information for council members as they vote. Or perhaps you could have a truncated discussion where it's asking for clarification perhaps on the item, or keeping as it is. So I just wanted to lay those out as some potential options to consider for council discussion, but I certainly turn it over to Councilmember Brenner on this.
Hi, and I don't think I was proposing a full discussion. I was just asking if we could ask for clarification before we have to. There have been some times when we've had items that I don't understand exactly, and I'd just like to be able to get clarification from the person who's asking. I feel like I'm voting uninformed sometimes. So I'm not really asking for a full discussion. I'm asking more for clarification.
Mr. O'Neill.
Yeah, so that sounds fine to me. Real quick background on it. When Brad and I first got on council, the council policies had grown to be ridiculously long, and there were a lot of council policies. We even had a council policy dealing with our employees' voicemails, and there was actually a voicemail policy that told them how to write their voice or to actually record their voicemails, at which point I asked our HR director, are we hiring people who don't know how to record their voicemails? And she assured me, no, we have much more competent people than that, so we deleted that one. So we actually ended up deleting over 30,000 words out of our council policies over a couple of years. And one of the ones that we were looking at was A1. And it's a fair point. We wrestled with A1, how to deal with that. The genesis of why the A1 policy exists in the first place on this particular issue is that we had a council member, before any of us were on council, who was consistently in a 6-1 position. But unfortunately, the staff would have to go through the process of, creating staff reports, and it would ultimately go to a 6-1 vote. And so it just didn't make sense to do that anymore. So that's the idea, but it's not the idea of trying to confuse anyone on the vote, and that's a fair point. I mean, I guess it's not that hard to write in, the ability to ask for clarification on it, with just the caveat that this is intended to be a non-discussion item, but seeking clarification on an A1 item seems totally reasonable to me. I've been confused on them too, so I would love to be able to ask that. I think that's a great idea. Not something I thought about when we were rewriting them, so it's always room for correction.
Okay, do we have any other comments on this?
I have one.
Oh, Diane, sorry.
Hi. No, it's okay.
Please go ahead.
It's not so hard to figure it out. Well, now that Councilmember Brenner has clarified, simply a clarification statement, which is, I was concerned, given your prior example, Mr. O'Neill, that we'd get into some advocacy at that early stage. So if it's simply a one or two sentence clarification, just to edify a comment, I'm in full support.
Yep, I think that's exactly what I'm suggesting. Yeah, that not a discussion, not a advocacy, but a clarification. I think that's totally reasonable to me.
Mr. Muldoon.
Yes, I also would be supportive of a one or two sentence clarification that's put on the agenda, but I would not want to see a memo. You see this in other cities where a city council member tries to get a staff member to write a memo that can be very partisan or sort of advocating for a position that I think creates issues early on. So I would support a one or two sentence clarification myself, but I would draw the line at that. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on this? So do we have any public comment?
Thank you, Mayor Avery, members of the City Council. My name is Jim Mosher. I would like to say that I don't think this actually requires any revision to A1. It just requires a careful reading of it and an examination of the history of where this came from. The current policy was adopted at the meeting on May 14th, 2013. Council members at that time asked whether this new agenda item, called Matters Which Council Members Would Like to Have Placed on a Future Agenda, would prevent them from discussing whether they wanted the item on a future agenda or not. And the city manager at that time assured them that the policy was not changing the ability that they had had in the past. In the past, they had had study sessions to decide what should be on future agendas, and he assured the council at that time that that was not the meaning of this. The city of Newport Beach, like other cities, does sometimes enact things that are intended to mean something different than they literally say, but there's nothing in the current policy A1 that says that this is a non-discussion item. And in fact, if you look at the order of the agenda, it says city council announcements are a non-discussion item. It does not say that this is a non-discussion item. It is an agenda item. The public expects you to be able to comment on everything that's on the agenda. The public also expects the public to be able to comment on what is on the agenda, to advise you whether we think it's something worth devoting staff time to or not. So I think this is simply a matter of looking at what the current policy A1 says. When Councilmember O'Neill revised them, he just put the old policies together. So it says what it said from the beginning, and it did allow us discussion on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to comment on this item? No phone calls? And I see none, so I'll bring it back. Do we have any more conversation from the dais? So, do we need to do anything? What do you think, Aaron?
Just for Brown Act purposes, is everyone in support of the idea for allow a couple clarifying questions?
Councilmember Dixon, is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Thank you.
5-0. 6-0, sorry.
All right. Next item is a presentation by the Harbor Commission on the Harbor Attendance Study.
Good afternoon, Mayor Avery and council members. I'm Carol Jacobs, your Assistant City Manager and Staff Liaison to the Harbor Commission. One of the Harbor Commission's goals is to get stakeholder input. And this afternoon I have Harbor Commissioner Steve Scully with us, who did the bulk of the work on this study, which was a lot of work. And I want him to present the results of the study. I think you'll find very interesting. Steve?
Got to take that off. It's killing me. All right. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time today, Mayor Avery and members of the City Council. As Carol said, my name is Steve Scully. I'm a current member of the Newport Beach Harbor Commission. And as one of your agenda items today is the work the Harbor Commission did on a harbor attendance study. We renamed it Harbor Stakeholder Study. And it was one of our approved goals that for 2020 that was completed in December of 2020. The purpose of the study was to measure and understand the stakeholders that we work for within Newport Harbor. We broke the study into stakeholders that are on the water and those that are on the land that surround the water. This? Oh, I go back. Okay. Just some of the dynamics that we took into consideration and thought through when we're putting this together was that Newport Harbor is the largest recreational boat harbor on the west coast of the United States. We have 21.6 miles of water frontage within Newport Harbor, plus an additional 15.5 miles of water in the Back Bay. We enjoy one of the most popular destinations for all aspects of boating and water activities. Newport Harbor is home to a large population of nonprofit and collegiate programs engaging our communities in sailing, rowing, science, education, child development, and fitness. It is one of the largest residential presence on the water on the West Coast, and we represent a thriving business community offering numerous opportunities in dining, boat rentals, kayaks, whale watching, sport fishing, lodging, and entertainment. One slide. There we go. Just went through some of the constituents that we talked to and put some of their logos out there. And we contacted almost 200 businesses and nonprofits that are all part of this stakeholder study. And we it took it's in the footnotes, but it took about 4 months of a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. And getting out, introducing ourselves to the business community, to the nonprofits, to the colleges, and what we came up with in this bar chart is we broke it up and looking at the number of people that use our beaches, and the beaches I'm talking here are the ones that are within the harbor, not outside the harbor, restaurants, residential slips and moorings, marinas, and the boat launch. Stakeholders that are coming in through the city of Newport Beach, for nonprofit businesses, the collegiate aspect, nonprofits, and yacht clubs. And you can see the two different colors, one being on land, one being on water, and a conservative number estimated at 7,120,819 stakeholders. Go to the next one. And then just broke it out here with the numbers a little bit clearer with the same headings there. And then just some of the footnotes is, as I mentioned, the study was conducted over 4 months and all through email and telephone. A number of stakeholders did not have a point of sale system or automation, so we used educated estimates and we took into consideration seasonality, which was very big for a lot of the people on the water. There was a few stakeholders that elected not to participate, so we used a conservative, educated estimate as part of those businesses. There'd be a yacht club here or a business there, and so I really truly believe that the numbers that we have here are conservative and most likely are significantly higher. as again, the conservative estimates and some of the stakeholders reported that they were affected by reductions in their business and improvements in their business, quite honestly, during COVID-19. As you may know, the harbor was very busy this last summer during COVID, and which was great to see. Beach estimates were based on square footage, seasonality, and are conservative. And if you have any future questions down the road, please don't hesitate to contact myself or Commissioner Yan. We were the two that had this objective and completed it. That's it for my report, if there's any questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from council? Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, just real quick. So, how does this inform any of our discussions going forward on, the revisions that we've made to Title 17 or our marine activities permits, et cetera, when you're working through and looking at an overview like this? What are your thoughts in terms of the the revisions and whether we need any more?
Well, I can tell you there was quite a bit of discussions with a number of businesses on the marine activities permits. I mean, because that was coming in as we were going through and contacting all these stakeholders. And there was two sides of the coin there. There were people that were not very happy with it, and there were some people that were very happy with it. I believe we still have a ways to go to get down the path on that in order to really probably be more forthright in terms of an answer on that. We're just rolling out the marine activity permits now, and and that's something totally different for the businesses on the harbor. So it's going to be a process.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Given the goal of having clear rules of the road in the harbor, and then at the same time making sure that we're ensuring the businesses thrive in the area, especially in our harbor area. I'm sure it'll be a working process, but just make sure our harbor commission's taking a look at that and can give us good advice on it.
We talk about it a lot, and I would say that the Harbor Commission is very sensitive to the businesses in the harbor and are doing what they can to try to make everything work. I mean, we have a limited amount of space, and the parking situation is a really tough aspect for that part of the business. It is something that we're dealing with on a daily basis.
All right, appreciate that.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Ms. Dixon?
I may have lost something in translation. The purpose of this study, and I guess I was confused because this was billed as an attendance, so I was expecting to see how many people come. So is that the same thing? How many people are enjoying our harbor, as well as the stakeholders who are doing the numeric count? Is that how I should interpret this?
It's a good question. It is an attendance study. So the answer to that, this is the number of people that are using the harbor in the different components that we outlined there. And the reason we use the term stakeholder is that these are the people that are from Newport, that are coming to Newport, and they're very important for the city. And so, as the Harbor Commission, it was one of our objectives that was approved by the City Council for 2020 to really get an understanding of who are the stakeholders of the harbor and where are they coming, where are they utilizing the harbor, and that just rolls right into marine activities permits and rolls into other aspects. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it did. And just one other clarification, when you talked about number 5, beach estimates were based on square footage. Did you consult with the lifeguards? Because they're always monitoring beach population on any given weekend.
Absolutely, as well as the harbor master and the lifeguard.
Okay, and then on your intro slide, if you wouldn't mind going to the beginning.
Oh, you're gonna
I think this is very helpful. Where did I see large? Okay, go to the next. I'm sorry, the next one. Second to last bullet point. Largest residential presence on the water on the West Coast. That's a very important point that all of us, including city staff, should be aware of when we advocate our positions on various issues before the California Coastal Commission, because I think the city, I believe I'll say strongly, the city does an outstanding job in monitoring visitor activity, residential activity, business activity, and they're all coming together, and about 11 million people, or you say 7 million people. I've always heard 10 to 11, so I guess we have to resolve that little gap. But we have millions of people coming over and above our population of 87,000 people, and I think the city does a magnificent job in providing all of that. I don't know if we get the credit, but that's to be discussed later, but credit from the Coastal Commission in terms of how we are balancing all these important needs in our community. So thank you very much. Well done.
Well, thank you. And I do think when you're trying to reconcile the numbers, this study was specific to on the water and just touching around the water of the harbor. It wasn't Newport Beach in aggregate.
Okay, good. Thank you for the clarification. Thanks.
Any other council comments? I have a couple of just thoughts. Once again, the numbers is just amazing, whether it's 7 or 11, and it's probably somewhere in between. Were there any surprises for you in this study? Anything surprise you, or is it pretty much what you thought it would be?
It's a couple things. I mean, the Christmas boat parade is such a big event.
Right.
I mean, that's just staggering, the number of people that are participating and enjoying that. I mean, that was a pretty big number. It was great to reach out to the business community, speaking on behalf of the Harbor Commission and getting the feedback
Right.
of city government and from the spectrum of taxes are insane. Why, what's the next tax you're going to tax me to? It's great that somebody, the harbor's getting a little bit out of control, it's starting to look like Lake Havasu. We're glad that somebody's starting to take a look at it and making sure that it's making sense. So it was the spectrum, and it had some great conversations. I mean, some people very passionate about Newport Beach, and so it was. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I bet. I think of it like, especially in the summer, it's like we have an aquatic theme park surrounded it's in the middle of a neighborhood.
Right.
And so, it's really something. And so this, again, this informs me that it's amazing that we can manage it all with so few resources in terms of money for our harbor patrol and for just sort of being, managing it through the permits and all the rest of it.
Right.
It's really a big deal, and the thing that saves us, I suppose, are boats are moving at 5 miles an hour, and people, by and large, along the water's edge and on the harbor, really behave themselves, and they're great as guests and great as residents being out there. But I think we do have a responsibility to make sure we've got the right amount of folks out there that can. We've got a partnership, obviously, with the sheriffs, and we've got our own harbor patrol, and we're working that up. It's still building.
Exactly.
But last summer was an eye popper in my mind of just some of the weekends were really, off chains and fun, absolutely fun, but a little. And obviously you heard it from some people, just sort of on the edge, at those peak times, on those peak weekends.
Sure.
So I think. We probably need to think about staffing up a little more on the water for those things to keep everybody being safe. I mean, I've never seen so many paddle boarders on the water and Duffys, and then you've got all these big yachts and commercial boats going up and down, and so it gets a little frightening at the peak hours, at least for me, in terms of, people staying safe. But, this is another wonderful bit of work by the Harbor Commission. And just continuing in that tradition. It's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Oh, I just wanted to add one thing, Brad.
Yes.
You're one of our newer harbor commissioners, correct? Thank you for doing all this work. This is great. The Harbor Commission is one of the commissions that I think we rely on really most readily because you guys do such a great job. I just wanted to add that, sort of to echo what Brad said, I was at a meeting in Bay Shores on Sunday afternoon, right on the water, where I was trying to concentrate on what we were talking about. I could not believe the amount of activity. on the harbor. There was a regatta going on, the sheriff's boat was there, there were Duffy boats going. I mean, I was really having a hard time focusing on the conversation because there was so much. And it really points out that how people have to really pay attention when they're out there, because I could see where there could be problems if people are not behaving well. So we really have to admire our city staff and the commission and the sheriffs and everyone that works so hard to make this such a world-class harbor. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will like to say is in each of our Harbor Commission meetings, we look at the statistics from the Harbor Department and the amount of code enforcement and touches that they have, during a month's period of time. It's literally thousands of touches in a month. So there's a lot going on. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and get public comments. If we've got any on this item. Great. Do we have any calls? All right. So I'll close public comments. And before we adjourn to closed session, do any council members have a conflict they would like to announce? Sure.
I have a conflict with our closed session. I have a conflict due to real property interests. I have a conflict with the business tax item due to business interests, and I have a conflict with the microtransit due to real property and business interests.
Thank you, Mr. Blum. Any other conflicts to announce?
And just to put a finer point on that, just real quick, it's regarding item number 4A, which is the 3300 Newport Boulevard item,
Right.
Based on being within 500 feet of it.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill.
Sorry, Mr. Harp, could you just briefly clarify what I had asked you to clarify on 4A, so that we have a little bit better understanding of what's going on there?
Yes, before we get public comments, I think there's been some speculation about what the city council is meeting about in regards to item 4A, which is the 3300 Newport Boulevard item and the real property negotiations. And I can't disclose what the city council will be discussing, but I can say that the item that will be considered is not the sale of the fire station property at 475 32nd Street. The council will not be meeting on selling that property. I think it's important to clarify that given the speculation that's been out there.
Sorry, not the sale of the hotel property.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
Great. So, Mr. Harp, do we have a standard announcement for?
Public comments, just real quick.
Yeah, there's Jim. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Avery, members of the council. I believe we're on Roman numeral 3, public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. I appreciate the slight clarification that we got there, and I agree with the letters that I saw in the lobby from Mr. Klob and the Fritz Duda Company. I think the public does deserve to know more about what you're discussing in closed session on the two real estate matters, because especially the only thing you're allowed to talk about there is price and terms of payment, and not about the merits of whether a sale, lease, or exchange of property should actually happen. And without knowing the details, the public can't really inform you on whether you should be talking about price or terms of payment yet. What I really wanted to talk about, though, was a non-agenda comment continuing what I said 2 weeks ago when the community room was being used as an election center, and we have 5 candidates running for the Board of Supervisors. It indeed turned out that the person who won that election received less than a majority of the votes. So the people of Orange County will never know for sure whether that person would have prevailed in a runoff, which is a situation that could be corrected by balloting with what is called ranked choice voting, which provides the benefits of a runoff without the cost of a runoff, and what would be beneficial in Newport Beach as well. The further comment I wanted to make out, it turned out the person who won was the mayor of Costa Mesa, which puts the Costa Mesa City Council in the dilemma of should they hold a special election to replace that person, or appoint a replacement. The appointment of elected officials is obviously a very undesirable result. And as some of you probably know, there was a time not very long ago when 4 of the people on this Newport Beach City Council got here not as all of you did by being elected, but actually by being appointed by a previous council and then being reelected with the power of incumbency. The point of this is that the city of Costa Mesa recently changed to district elections. Had the person who had prevailed in the other election, creating a vacancy, been a district council member, the cost of the election would not have had to be a citywide election as they did for mayor, and as has to happen here. That's why the appointments happened in the past. The cost of a citywide election is extremely high, $500,000 or more. So this is another advantage of considering in Newport Beach going to district elections. If a vacancy occurs, the cost of replacing that person is far less than holding a citywide election. And we could avoid the situation where we had of a majority of the council getting here by appointment. And Costa Mesa could have solved their problem had it been a council member rather than a mayor. Thank you. So I hadn't thought of that before, but it's another reason to consider district elections. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments on agenda or non-agenda items? All right, seeing none.
Thank you, Mayor Avery. The City Council will adjourn to closed session to meet with real property negotiators Simone Georges and Lauren Whitlinger regarding negotiations with Robert Olson regarding the property at 3300 Newport Boulevard, which is item 4A on the agenda. The City Council will not be meeting regarding item number 4B, which will be continued to a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, did you have anything further?
No, I'm just trying to
Okay.
mute my
All right.
video. Thank
Just want to
you.
make sure. I saw your hand.
I'm fine.
All right, thanks. All right, we are recessed until the 6 o'clock regular meeting. Thank you.